Hello and welcome. I'm Reed Riggs. Thank you for listening to my careful ramble. And I had a thought this morning about frequency bands and how they can play out in language instruction. And then I had a thought about textbooks as well and how they organize things. I think that we keep falling into a trap as language teachers that is the same trap for all subject areas. So when we say, in chemistry, we're going to learn where the electron is. For this unit, we're just focusing on where the electron is. There may be units that put it together, that pull the pieces together, and the focus is on some bigger system that pulls together pieces of smaller things we've used before, and that's the focus of the unit. In language, we often don't do that, where we'll say, okay, the focus of this unit is this new list of words and vocabulary, words and grammar. Or if it's like unit 1, then just learn the sounds first. So when people start to think of a more functional way of organizing the whole curriculum for language, teaching a language, they'll say, okay, well, let's get more functional. Let's refer to something like a frequency list, and we can have frequency bands, because those represent the most used words out in the outside world based on the texts that were fed into whatever system to generate those frequency lists of words. You're still creating the same trap where you're saying, okay, for this unit, we're focused on these words, and then on the next unit, we're moving on to the next words. And then there's just no time for anything else, because each unit, we're just focusing on the next list of words. And so you're never doing that kind of integrative thing. And actually we do, it's just put in the margins. So it's like at the very end, here's some extra little thing. Maybe it's optional. Some people call it a by the way type of like cultural reading. And it's usually perceived by students and teachers as being way too hard. And the reason it's so hard is that we're not actually snowball building the language we've been learning continuously. So we're not continuing to build it up and spending most of our time doing it. So I think a solution for textbooks actually could be, instead of saying this whole unit is focused on input and output of this list of vocabulary words, and then turn the page, next unit or next lesson, whatever you call it in a textbook, a module, whatever, this set of pages. The next set of pages will be focused on all kinds of things that practice this next set of words, and no longer focused on whatever came before. The teachers will often say, oh no, it does recycle. Yeah, incidentally a little bit, but not nearly enough, that it really needs to be much more integrative of like everything we've been doing, we keep using. And it doesn't have to be, everything all at once all the time. It should be more routine based, but within a unit, students will treat it as, oh, we already learned that. Why are we doing that now? And teachers reinforce that thinking when they say, oh yeah, you're right. Sorry, let's just focus on, whatever the core of this unit is. It's these words. So I think what a textbook could do is treat the beginning maybe largely the same, where you do some sort of reading or task that introduces some new words that will be new in that unit or lesson or module or set of pages, whatever was coming up. And so the beginning could be kind of similar. But the rest of it is not focused on reinforcing just that new vocabulary at the expense of everything that came before. But instead, it's like, okay, welcome to the big ball of all the words you've used before. I don't think things need to be written like language first. You could just have more interesting texts. Maybe start with texts that are interesting and then pare them down to mainly be using the highest frequency words, but that the topics that they're talking about are building on topics that students have read about before, maybe largely overlapping. If they've learned about Hanfu, Chinese historical clothing that are currently fashionable and trending, that we read the next bit of information or some bit of news or some other maybe some bit of history, something else about hand food. Like we keep coming back to that. If we've read about food before, then here's another reading about food, but it's some new information about food. A textbook could be a little more thematic as well. So you could have a textbook that's mainly focused on food, the entire textbook, and there's so much to say about it. And then you make your routines within the chapter or within the unit or module or set of pages come up like that. You could have, you could have a, whatever your theme could be, something like, even if it is food, then you could have a unit on, okay, what should we wear to this formal meal versus this family meal, versus this holiday family meal, versus this meal with friends. So let's compare, when does the clothing matter more, and what do people conventionally wear? And so the focus of that unit could be on clothing, but it's still connected to the bigger theme of the entire book, which is food. So yeah, I don't think that the solution then is to say, okay, let's randomly make words they've learned before keep appearing. People don't typically use language in order to use language. Like when we have a conversation with a friend, you don't say, hey, can I come speak English to you? I have a bunch of English words I want to say to you. No, it's, did you see what happened on the whatever, did you see this TikTok? Did you hear what happened to our friend? Did you hear about who's dating? Oh, I'm so hungry. Oh, guess what happened yesterday? My mom said this thing. Like, we talk about, we develop topics together, and that's our action that we're doing, and then we use language to perform those actions. I think that the same thing should be happening in a textbook, is that there's interesting topics to read about, and there could be scaffolded discussions that even have some language scaffolding. Like, here are some ways to propose ideas about this topic in this chapter, and they don't have to be focused on the words that were introduced at the beginning of the chapter. It's just that the beginning of the chapter was setting us up for some words that will come up in this unit that just probably haven't been seen before, definitely not in this book. And then you're more ready to engage with the topics, to read and understand the topics, to be able to have discussions about the topics, that focus is on meaning. And again, the language doesn't have to get away from us if we can choose to pare it down. If it's a beginning level textbook or a second semester textbook or a second year textbook, we can make decisions about making the language simpler. But that's not starting from the language. That's starting from some interesting text, starting from some interesting video, and then deciding how we want to scaffold it. I think it's okay to simplify texts. It's good to also have some fully authentic texts. They just have to be around the level of the student. So maybe some menus and signs for total beginners, and then something a little more complex for later on. And also the length of what we're focusing on. So it could be a real news article, but we're only reading one sentence from it. It could be a real news clip, but we're only focusing on 20 seconds of that news clip. So that's another way to pare it down. Yes, so those are some solutions, I think, to, you don't have to throw out everything that people are doing with introducing and scaffolding vocabulary. Just don't make everything about the introducing and scaffolding vocabulary. And so that's, I think, the main problem and the fix. Okay, I've been Reed Riggs. Thank you for listening to my careful ramble.